Madness. This is
Gloomhaven.
Hey everyone, and welcome to my Brute class guide video for Gloomhaven. This is my first post-isolation beard and haircut video, so looking a little bit fresh. Hopefully, you still recognize me from the other videos. This is one of the first times I've actually shaved on stream since I started doing this, so yeah, hopefully you still recognize me. The Brute has a couple of different builds that you can go for. This is focused more on the tanking element of playing the Brute. So if you want to be the character that goes in there, takes some damage for your team, has lots of shield and absorbs that damage, then this is the guide for you. We also mix in a little bit of the damage build, which is something else. The Brute's a nice character for you to play with to begin with Gloomhaven, because I mean there's not too much you can do wrong with the Brute really. So there will be some decisions that you may make here that may differ from this guide, but this is meant as a nice sort of guide for people who are just interested in getting some tanking done for their team and playing a nice, stable build for the Brute. Now, Gloomhaven Digital has come a long way, and the latest Guildmaster patch is fantastic. And if you haven't checked it out, I really recommend that you check this out. You can see my video. I will put a little link up there. There you go. A little link to my video where I talk about what Guildmaster mode is and what it means for Gloomhaven Digital. And because we've now got so far, I now can pretty much film most of my videos inside Gloomhaven Digital, which is just awesome. So a lot of this video is going to be filmed inside Gloomhaven Digital. However, all of the information is still valid for tabletop Gloomhaven. And in fact, I'll even post some of the cards up from the tabletop version because there are some color differences. There's blue backs in the original, and there are kind of a brownie back that they put in digital just to help people not get confused with the Mind Thief. So that's just a little change they made there just visually, just to help you, but there's no real changes at all. So just a heads up, that's coming, but this guide is good for both versions of the game. Just before we jump into it, guys, if you do enjoy this content, please consider liking the video and hitting that subscribe button. It really does mean a lot to me. I can't believe that we're already getting close to 500 subscribers on this channel. It's blowing my mind right now, the kind of feedback that I've had from this. So I really appreciate it if you have subscribed. Hopefully you're still enjoying the content, and I plan on doing lots more Gloomhaven videos for you guys. So yeah, please do hit that subscribe button if you'd like to see more. I do stream regularly on Twitch as well. It's just coming up to my Twitch birthday, which is this week. I stream regularly on twitch.tv/mandatoryquest. I stream there every Monday, Wednesday, and Sunday. Just come check me out. Usually playing Gloomhaven, so if you've got any questions you want to ask me, then just come check me out there. Okay, so now we're inside Gloomhaven Digital. You can see here the cards that we're going to start with. The cards we're leaving behind are Eye for an Eye, Overwhelming Assault, and Wall of Doom. I think in terms of sideboard potential, Eye for an Eye and Overwhelming Assault do have a place, and I think if you're lacking a little bit of damage, Overwhelming Assault, the 2 XP for a nice big attack, I think could be worth it. Eye for an Eye as well could potentially have some sideboard potential against high shield but low health enemies. Things like Imps, this would be a very good thing, or Living Spirits, this could be a really good card against. So you got some sideboard potential with those two cards. Moving across to the tabletop version, you can see it's just the color that changes here. Let's have a look at Initiative. So Initiative, we're actually quite good with Initiative compared to some of the other starting characters. We can ensure that we go early, and we can make sure that we get that monster focus, so it's us doing the tanking in a situation where focus could be split between 2 targets. We'll ensure that we go early. Also, Provoking Roar allows us to go nice and early with things like Trample to ensure that we actually get these abilities off. Shield Bash on 15 is great because we can then shield up at the beginning of a round, and we don't necessarily have to worry about going late in a round shielding when it doesn't matter. So you always want to go early in a round if you're shielding. The Brute is actually quite a fast leveling character compared to some of the other starting characters, so you shouldn't have any problems with gaining levels quickly, considering that pretty much all of our cards will give us experience points, and we can actually cycle them for multiple experience points. This build does revolve a lot around using the top of balance to measure for a nice attack as well, so we will be picking up lots of movement cards along the way to make sure that we maximize the top. Although this guide is skewed more towards tanking than damage, we do still have the potential to do lots of damage with this build, so you will still have lots of opportunity to do big damage attacks and have a lot of fun killing enemies. One of the best level 1 cards, in my opinion, is Trample, which allows us an amazing amount of control if you combine it with Warhammer to stun lots of enemies in a room. If you use a pair of boots, you can get even more enemies, and in combination with Provoking Roar, you can pretty much ensure that you go first in a round and get this off, which just makes it fantastic, and we will be leaning on this combo quite a lot. Do bear in mind that you may need the Pierce on certain enemies, so although we have Skewer, you may not want to burn this card immediately if you are against high shield enemies. The Pierce can come in use. However, this card is great at getting you out of a corner in combination with Warhammer. Okay, so at level 2, the first 2 cards we've got to choose from here is Fatal Advance and Juggernaut. Fatal Advance, to me, is just one of those cards that appears good on the surface, but actually, as you level up and you dig into it, is just not as strong as it first seems. The key thing here is it says kill one adjacent normal enemy, and as you level up, you'll notice that you'll start seeing more and more elite enemies, and these are the enemies that really do give you trouble. So as we are tanking, we are taking Juggernaut, and we're replacing grab and go. I'm not a huge fan of loot cards in general. I feel like they don't really do enough, and I feel that you can actually loot yourself fairly efficiently. So I don't think that loot cards are particularly amazing, so we'll be getting rid of that one straight away. So the top of Juggernaut is nice, just being able to move and attack. This actually combos very nicely with our shield bash, so will allow us to move, attack, and then shield potentially in a single turn and go early, which is nice. But the main reason we're taking Juggernaut is for the bottom, being able to negate the next 3 instances of damage that we take, which is important. So it could be any value of damage that we take. We can essentially negate it through using this card. This can be very, very strong when you know that you're in a position when you feel like you need to rest, or you know that you're in a position where you're going to be taking a lot of damage because you've potentially just opened a door or something like that, or you're being bared down by a very high damage melee enemy. This is just a really good way of just absorbing that damage. Okay, so at level 3 we have the choice between Hook and Chain, which unfortunately is a bit disappointing for us, but we do get the excellent card Brute Force, which is just a strict upgrade for us over Sweeping Blow and gives us some extra shield. So this is going to be one of our main tanking cards going forward. The top attack 3 potentially with Muddle is actually pretty decent. These low value attacks don't scale particularly well into the late game, but having Muddle on there can actually save you some damage, so it kind of works quite well with our other abilities, trying to just ensure that we take the least amount of damage possible. This is just a nice straight like for like swap with Sweeping Blow. We're not losing anything by getting rid of Sweeping Blow here, so we just get rid of that. Okay, so at level 4, we get access to Unstoppable Charge or Devastating Hack. 2 cards that are pretty similar tops, big damage attacks, but the main difference here is that Unstoppable Charge doesn't burn a card. Attacking for 5, getting 1 XP, and just being able to do that multiple times in this scenario is going to be very, very useful for us. Also, the move for stun on the bottom, and the fact that it can stun all adjacent enemies can buy you an entire turn if used correctly. So Unstoppable Charge is just fantastic from top to bottom. Devastating Hack, just that 8 damage, 3 XP. It's going to help you level quicker, but unfortunately, just what is the point of having 3 extra damage for 2 extra XP, but it's a burn? It just doesn't really scale for the damage that it gives. So I can't really recommend Devastating Hack here at all. Even in a different build, I probably wouldn't recommend it there either. I think just at this point, Unstoppable Charge is just the best card here. We're going to be sad to see Spare Dagger go, but I think this is a good swap because we're increasing the amount of damage we can do, although it's now melee damage. That is really what we're trying to do with this character, be up in people's faces. So at level 5, we've got a really difficult decision to make. We've got Whirlwind and we've got Skirmishing Maneuver. 2 great cards here, and you could make a case for picking either of these 2 cards. Personally, I'm taking Whirlwind, and this is for why. I really like the push on the bottom of Whirlwind. I think that can give you so much more play when you're dealing with lots of traps or when you're dealing with enemies that you can immobilize and then push away. I quite often play the Brute with the Mind Thief, who has a lot of immobilize, so I generally like to play in this style. I also think the top of Whirlwind is a really strong attack and can combo very nicely with Warhammer again. If you want to keep your trample for your pierce, you've always got the top of this to burn for a big stun. I just really like Whirlwind. I can see an argument for taking Skirmishing Maneuver here. I think it's a great set of abilities, a little bit of range on the bottom can be very good. However, just for me, I've had more success with Whirlwind, so I'm just recommending Whirlwind here for you. However, neither of these two cards are tanking cards. I do think having more movement works nicely with balanced measure, so that's another reason, as we're keeping balanced measure in this set of cards, I do think the move 4 on the bottom works quite nicely with Whirlwind with that. We're swapping out Skewer here, which is one of our stronger cards. I do think that this card will occupy your sideboard quite nicely, so with Skewer, just keep it in the wings, ready to come in on any scenario where you basically need a lot of pierce. Skewer can be great to bring in just for the odd scenario. So at level 6, we get to choose between Quietus and Immovable Phalanx as our new cards. Quietus is actually a really interesting card, and I've always wanted to try to combo this a lot more with the Mind Thief, because I think there's a lot of potential with a character that can do a lot of stunning for Quietus to be quite good. However, Immovable Phalanx is just so strong for tanking and will be just an easy pick for us here. At 17 initiative, being able to do a nice high value attack and shielding at the same time is great. I don't often find myself using the bottom of this card though. That is something that you may want to play towards the end of the scenario, but generally speaking, we are always playing this for the top. If you know that you're going to come up short, Immovable Phalanx can be really good if you use the bottom of that just to get that extra damage and get the scenario win over the line. We're going to be swapping out Shield Bash because we now have Shield attached to an attack. It has similar initiative 2 at 17 versus 15, and the stun, we actually have access to the stuns through other cards now, so it's just not something we really need to lean on as much anymore. We will miss that 2 XP though. So at level 7, we get access to the best tanking card that the Brute has access to, which is Defensive Tactics. This can give us a permanent shield and a permanent retaliate, just giving us just upside for being in enemies' faces and taking damage for our team now with that retaliate trigger. This is just a very strong ability. You will still find yourself in trouble. One shield does not protect you from the world, so you can still die, can still take damage. Bear in mind that things like poison can essentially mitigate a single shield, so you do have to be careful. This doesn't make you just unstoppable. However, this is a really strong card, and actually the top is fairly strong too, and I actually find myself usually using the top of this card a few times before actually then activating the bottom of the card. So don't just burn this early just for the sake of because it's a persistent ability and you get it forever. Just bear in mind that actually in certain situations the top of this can actually help mitigate you some damage in the early rounds, so you can just kind of immobilize them, sit put, and then when you need to you can just pop the bottom of this card and then you've got your shield and your retaliate for the rest of the scenario. We're actually swapping out Warding Strength here, which is a shield ability. If you wanted to double stack shields, or if you had a particular scenario that you were struggling with, one maybe you had to survive a certain number of rounds, you could actually take both of these and just get yourself as many shields as possible and try and survive. But on balance, I do think you only want one of these cards that just gives you a shield over a long period of time, and seeing as this now gives us a permanent shield and retaliate for the entire scenario, it's just much better than Warding Strength. So at level 8, we get the choice between Frenzied Onslaught and Selfish Retribution. Frenzied Onslaught is a great damage card, and there is no way of getting around that. They move 2, attack 2, move 2, attack 2 on the top. It's just 4 movement, 4 damage, however way you'd like to take it, and having the movement on the top gives you a lot of flexibility. The bottom of it also can amplify a lot of damage potentially if you manage to combo this at the right time with some of your AoE attack style abilities. However, this build is all about taking the focus of the enemies away from your team and tanking for them, which is why we'll be taking Selfish Retribution for 2 reasons. The 12 initiative just gives us a really good initiative to go on to ensure we are the focus, and also the Retaliate will just absolutely cut through any enemy with shield that has a high shield and potentially low health. This will absolutely rip through them, and those enemies tend to be the most difficult to kill, especially at later levels. It means you have to do 8-9 damage in a single attack to be able to kill something, or potentially only as much as 3 retaliate damage. So this can be extremely strong and can help you out in those really tricky situations. The move 1 loot 2 is okay. I'm not a huge fan of looting, as I've said before. However, if I was to have any loot card, I think it would be this, because you can actually move into a good position with it and then loot in one single action. My main criticism of looting in Gloomhaven is the fact that you have to actually play a movement and then you have to play a loot on the following turn, because most of the loot actions are on the bottom of the card. So whenever you see a loot action on the top of a card, that does make it a lot easier to loot, because it means you're going to be able to move and loot in the same turn. And this actually allows you to move and loot too with the top of a card, and actually so you could play the bottom and you can move even more. So there's plenty of potential here for you to move into a really nice position to loot. The 10 initiative and disarm on Provoking Roar has kept it around for some time, but now we do have another nice early initiative card that we can use, which has more upside on the bottom now and more of an aggressive tone to it. So this is quite an easy swap. We never really used the bottom of Provoking Roar either, unless we were in a bit of a weird spot. This is quite a simple change. Okay, so here we are at max level at level 9, and our 2 level 9 cards are King of the Hill and Face Your End. Now, compared to some of the other characters, these cards are not amazing. They're not going to do anything crazy powerful or special, but they are just fairly decent. I think King of the Hill is weaker overall, mainly because I think the 5 heal is just something we don't really care to do ourselves. I think we have items and we have teammates who can help us with that. And to be honest, the bottom of Face Your End is probably a bit better like for like. So I think Face Your End is on balance the better card here. I do like the fact that it's got pull on it as well, so it allows you to bring those ranged enemies closer to you, and especially in combination with things like Immobilize and stuff like that, you can actually ensure that they stay next to you, get your Retaliate, have their disadvantages, things like that. You can also trigger traps very easily with Face Your End. So on balance, we're taking Face Your End here. I do think I'm probably taking that card regardless of what build I'm playing with the Brute here, because I just think the card in general is just more used to us. That killing an elite enemy is just a nice upside, so it means that it will be always relevant, this card. Like I said, we're really going to be using the top of Face Your End mainly to just interact with traps and ranged enemies to try and pull them closer to us to ensure that we are the focus. So we're really going to be using the top of Face Your End most of the time. XP doesn't really matter at this point in time because we're now max level, so really we're just using Face Your End to try and activate traps, pull ranged enemies closer to us, and just control the room a little bit more as the Brute. So at level 9, we are actually swapping out Juggernaut. So this card has been a great role player for us up to this point, making sure that we don't take too much damage over the course of a scenario. However, now we really do have some good cards at our disposal to deal damage. We have some good shield cards at our disposal. We also can play a lot more aggressively and more proactively, and we should at this point have some nice items as well that can kind of help mitigate some damage. So Juggernaut just doesn't really end up doing much, and also when you start dealing with some enemies that have, you know, abilities that just do 1 damage or something like that, if you're against something like a Night Demon, for example, they can do like just 1 damage to all adjacent targets. There are ways that now Juggernaut can just get triggered when you don't want it to be triggered, so we can take Juggernaut out. I do think this is still a fantastic sideboard card though, so if you are struggling with a scenario and you need to survive a certain number of rounds, or you just need to take a lot of damage and you just seem to be dying, bring Juggernaut in. But we're quite happy here to now swap out Juggernaut and be a bit more proactive, and we're going to be a bit more aggressive and try and do damage. So here is our level 9 Brute to completion. So as you can see, we have got a nice mix of cards here. We've got some shielding cards, we've got Retaliate that we can do while shielding, and we've also got some high damage attacks too. This is a very well-rounded character, and I really like this build when playing with 2 or 3 characters. When you do get to 4 characters, that's when things do start to become a bit more trickier, because you cannot play in the same playstyle of being very aggressive and tanking, being a soul tank for your team. At 4 player, you're going to have more enemies on the board, so you're going to be taking more damage. So you have to bear that in mind. You're going to need either an ally to help you out with lots of heals, or you're going to need to spec fully into a tank build. So you're going to have to take warding strength, and you're going to have to take a lot more of these tanking abilities, and you're going to have to basically just take out some of the damage. I would also maybe consider dropping Warhammer for a shield rather than going for the kind of stun combo with trample. So there are a few things that you can do to make yourself a little bit more tanky, but this build is incredibly well rounded and works amazingly at 2 and 3 characters. Okay, let's talk about perks briefly. The first perk you're probably going to want to take either first, or it may be second depending on what items you buy, but Fortitude to ignore negative item effects and add 1 +1 card is just really good. If not, you can go straight to Consistency, which is also very strong. Any way that we can kind of thin our deck and weight it towards plus cards is just good. Next up, we're going to do Focus, which is similar kind of deal. Get rid of a -1, give us a +1. Then we're going to go do Outburst and just add 1+3 so we can do even more damage. Then actually we're going to go down to the rolling modifiers because in this build we want to try and control the enemies quite a lot. So we're going to take Pacify because I like Disarm and I like Muddler's effects. Next up you're going to want to take Stab, which is the 2 Pierce. So being able to do the rolling pierce effects is very strong, especially as we're going to be getting rid of Skewer later on. Then we're going to want to go towards stunning. So stun is the most powerful thing you can do. And I think just having like a couple of these stuns in there is going to be really helpful for you. Again, we are sort of skewing this more towards control and tanking than we would maybe damage. After you've done that, you have your kind of finalized attack modifier deck. That's all of the perks up to level 9. As you unlock more perks though through your battle goals, you can consider taking Bulwark if you want to get some more tanking going on, some more shielding, or you could instead go and take power instead. It's kind of up to you. I prefer to keep my deck thin, so I'll be taking Bulwark most likely, but it's up to you in this situation, whichever one you prefer. They're pretty similar. Okay, so let's have a look at some items. You're going to want a healing potion, you're going to want a stamina potion. That's pretty obvious, but also what we're going to be doing is revolving around the combo of Trample and Warhammer. So these two cards work really, really well together, allowing us to stun a load of enemies. Chuck in some extra boots as well, so boots of striding to give yourself an extra +2 move is really going to help here. You're going to want some armor items as well, so you're going to want some sort of armor chest piece. Hide armor is all you've got to begin the game, but you will unlock better armors as the game goes on. You can also just look for a helmet that will be kind of applicable later on, but helmets are kind of optional here. There isn't going to be a helmet that I would recommend you go out and buy immediately here. With enhancements, we're looking for simple, cheap enhancements to cards that we actually keep for the duration of the build. So Leaping Cleave and Trample are 2 cards that we keep around for the entire build, so we'll be building around those. A cheap enhancement for Leaping Cleave is just to add another movement to the bottom. This increases the damage you can do with balanced measure, but also just helps your movement in general. You'll find things to be a lot easier to move around. You could also look at increasing the number of hexes on Leaping Cleave, or add some kind of negative effect to the attack on there, like a poison or a wound or something like that. That's more expensive, but it's something that you could do. For Trample, we really want to increase that movement from a move 4 to a move 5. It will potentially give us an extra target with the attack, so potentially another target that we can stun using Warhammer combos. So that's another really good cheap enhancement that you can get on the Brute that will just make your life a lot easier. Okay guys, well there we have it. There is my guide for the Brute. Hopefully you enjoyed the video. If you've got any comments about other cards that you would have picked up there, then please comment below. It's always interesting to hear your guys' take on these different builds as well. There's no right answer in this kind of situation, so let me know what you think about your builds for the Brute in the comments below. Don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe if you do enjoy the content. As I said, I'm just amazed so far with how well we're doing with this channel, and I'd like to push it onwards and upwards, and I'll have lots more class guides coming, so if you're interested in Gloomhaven class guides, this is the place to be. You can catch me streaming live at twitch.tv/mandatoryquest. I stream there every Monday, Wednesday, Sunday. Come hang out, play Gloomhaven with me, ask me any questions there. And lastly guys, just a quick note, if you play Gloomhaven Digital, I have a Discord server that I've set up for the community. We have a looking for group channel there, so if you are looking to play multiplayer Gloomhaven Digital, which is coming very, very soon, then the links to my Discord are below. Jump in the Discord server and maybe you can find some people to play with if you're struggling to find some people to play remotely, and it's going to be a really good experience, I think, playing this online with people. So jump in the Discord, see if you can find some friends. All right, and that wraps up the video. So thank you again for watching, and I will catch you guys in the next video. Okay guys, bye. Oh. Hello. Ha ha ha.